We have new developments in the tragic drowning accident of the Obama family chef, Tafari Campbell. Now, according to new reports, a female staffer was paddleboarding with Campbell when he fell off his board. She tried to help him before he disappeared under the water. Eventually, she returned to shore so that she could go get help. This woman has not been identified. The Obamas were not at the property at that time, although they were on the island.
This isn't the first time a president's personal chef died suddenly. Walter Scheib, a former executive chef during the administrations of Presidents Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, also drowned accidentally in 2015. Of course, that coincidence, that echo, is causing some people to think conspiratorially about this moment. The idea being that family chefs have a lot of proximity to families, might hear things and be aware of things that might be disadvantageous or embarrassing to the family, and are consequently vulnerable to very powerful interests. Of course, that is purely speculative, and the nature of the world and coincidences. That's why something might seem like an exact copy. How often does somebody's private chef drown in these kind of circumstances? The reality is that there's just so many incidences of the world that sometimes things do echo in this way.
Right, and this person was a presumably otherwise healthy, younger person, drowned in 8 feet of water, and that might sound like, how do you just drown if you're not even that far from the shore? But actually, that happens to people all the time.
It does.
We always get warnings when summer begins from lifeguards that most drownings happen with lots of other people around. If your drowning doesn't look like what people think it looks like if you're struggling like this, you're not actually drowning. You're drowning when you slip under the water. It happens quick.
Yeah.
It's if you're not able to call out and shout. If you're able to call out and shout and squirm and splash, you're not drowning.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what I think has also driven some of the questions about this incident. One, as we just showed, there is video that shows that he could swim. It looked like in those videos that he was maybe taking swimming lessons, but that he was somewhat of a proficient swimmer. Now, someone who's taking adult swimming lessons might not be the most natural in the water, given that it's a more relatively recent skill that you've acquired. But still, there would be an expectation perhaps that an adult man, I believe he was about 6 foot tall, can either make it to the shore or go down and springboard himself off the bottom to the top again. Some of the witnesses that saw him go under did describe him, so his falling off, his head going under and not seeing him again. I think one witness said it went under, didn't see him again. Another witness said it popped up again and then went down. What is actually happening there? How does something like this happen? Yeah. If you really can't swim, why put yourself in that situation out on a paddleboard?
But again, I mean, there are a million ways. You could be a strong swimmer, and a million things could have. He could have just had a cardiac event or something while doing it. He could have gone under, hit his head. He could have, with the paddleboard, I would want to know more details too about the actual paddleboard. Is this one of those where your feet are like fastened into it? Like you could get caught on the board, like you could be in a position where you can't squirm quite out of the board, but you're being like trapped underwater. There's just so many ways that while it seems like it's perfectly safe, freak accidents happen all the time.
It is true. Now, we should note that he was 45 years old. He was married and a father, and the human tragedy of this is very significant. It is interesting that some of the details have taken a little bit of a time to trickle out. One of the witnesses, at least, being this female staffer who was paddling with him, is a detail that, as we said at the top, has only recently emerged. Her identity is still being withheld. It's unclear why. There were some questions about what the autopsy might reveal. Apparently, there was no trauma to the head, which some people were speculating might be evidence of foul play, or alternatively, an explanation for why he wasn't able to swim and save himself if he had knocked himself unconscious or something like that. But that also doesn't seem to be the case.
He could have gone down, like you said, to springboard back up and got his foot caught on something down.
Yeah,
it happens.
I mean, I will say I was paddleboarding actually in the region in Massachusetts over the last week when I was out on vacation. And when this news story broke, I found myself thinking very specifically about what could happen in the lake that I was in. And, the things that I could knock my head on, the ways that I could run out of stamina, the fact that there weren't that many people on the lake at a time, even in the broad light of day, to really observe me if I were struggling and in trouble. I remember saying to the people I was with, like, I hope you guys don't come out here alone. Because I could see, even as strong swimmers, my parents were very invested in us being good swimmers because they weren't, and put us in little tadpole classes when we were like 4 or 5 years old.
Too.
But it doesn't matter. Like it made me feel very vulnerable, frankly, and was a reminder of how dangerous the water can be, even for the strongest of swimmers.
Me and my friends used to go whitewater rafting like every summer. And it's a lot of fun, and you often, you're in a kind of giant inner tube, basically, that you paddle, and you hit a rock, you fall out. I mean, you're in life jackets. But every year, on the course we did, which was not a super advanced course, like kids were doing it, older people. It's not super advanced, but every year someone does drown doing it, because there's just an area where if you hit the rock the right way, you're going to fall out, and you're going to get sucked under.
Yes.
And you're just going to drown. And
That's
that
my
happens
nightmare.
to somebody every year, and people still do it.
Yeah, my non-swimming
We did this
parents-
course, and we did it, and then like next year we went back, and I don't know, I was just feeling like more risk averse. I'm like, let's just get out and walk it around this stretch of the river, and it's like, why take? It's not worth the one. Again, doesn't happen a lot. Just happens to one person a year. But I don't want to be that person. Yeah.
My non-swimming parents took us when I was a kid living in North Carolina on the Nantahala. And in retrospect, they were non-swimmers. And my brother and I could swim well, but we were like probably 6 and 8 or something like that, 7 and 9, something like that. And I remember my brother and I being like, we're going to have to save these jokers. Like, if something goes down, it's on us. And, in that situation, you at least have rocks and, those like pools that suck you under and things like that. In a calm lake, it gives the illusion of safety, I will say.
People drown in swimming pools in their backyards.
Yeah.
With family around.
What do you make of some of the largely conservative speculation that there was foul play afoot here?
I mean, it's just wild speculation, right? We need at least something to go off of to begin to impugn a nefarious motive. Like, I saw some people saying, he was writing a tell-all. Apparently that's not true.
Why do they think that he was?
I don't know why that claim was made, but there's no evidence for it. If you're going to make an extraordinary claim, and sometimes extraordinary claims are right, there's nothing I can tell other than it's just people think, well, it's just suspicious, it's just fishy that he died. But it's really not fishy, because people drown in exactly these circumstances every year. I'm
also curious about the kind of liability implications. Someone else on your property availing themselves, you have to get insurance for if you have a dock, things like that. The family I was staying with, was like, it's not out of unfriendliness that we don't want other people to come onto the dock, but our insurance only covers what happens to us on the family. We don't want to be responsible for someone jumping off and hitting their head or something like that. And, why, there's Secret Service nearby, but not observing, not close enough to help.
For swimming pools, you often have to have them, I think it's probably different in every state. It's a state thing, but sometimes you're legally obligated to have like a fence around the swimming pool.
Right.
It depends exactly, because if if a neighborhood kid, if a burglar breaks in, drowns in your swimming pool, their estate can sue you.
Right, and there was also a story recently about how pools in these urban areas aren't opening this summer because there's a lifeguard shortage, and you just can't get around protections like that. Were there rules about wearing life vests? What is going on here? Could the Obamas potentially be liable in any kind of a wrongful death situation? I think there's a lot more that's going to come out about this story and the tragedy. But that's all we've got for you today. Stick around. We'll have more Rising for you right after this.